Hello, welcome to another episode of Macarious Meanderings, and today is going to be an interesting video because I'm going to respond to a video that featured Dr. Jerome B. Peterson where somebody took a clip out of his Q&A session. And the question that was asked was, can you take the biblical stories seriously enough without also keeping biblical traditions? What's the psychological effect of group gathering church going? And Dr. Jerome B. Peterson said that in his response that you can take the biblical stories seriously, but it's not particularly easy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to respond to his responses, and he made a few interesting comments that I'm going to respond to from the Orthodox Christian perspective. Okay. I have a whole transcript, so yeah, I'm going to be looking a little bit over here to my left or right, depending on how you look at it. So you can take the biblical stories seriously, but it's not particularly easy. Now that's an interesting statement because no, it's not easy to take the biblical stories seriously in such a way that you actually act upon them. Because being able to, trying to follow the gospel commands is a very difficult thing to do. Putting aside, doing somebody harm, just imagine just trying to control your thoughts. Oh, that person crossed me in traffic, I hate him. Or, oh, that person's so aggravating, they just dropped something on the ground, they're not picking it up when they should. Like in a store, retail, for instance. Not even looking at intentional harm, how hard is it to keep your soul, your thoughts reined in, such that you simply do not think badly of people? Trying to retain that inner peace is hard. So it's not easy to retain, to follow the Gospels. It's very difficult. Let's see, what was the other thing he said? Okay, so he said that he hadn't been able to go to church because, frankly, it drives him crazy, having to sit so long. Now, that's interesting because, from the Orthodox Christian perspective, there's no sitting in church. You stand. In every single Orthodox church, unless they're doing it wrong, you stand in church. That is it. You stand from the beginning to the end. The only time you sit is during the priest's homily, or, in the American term, sermon. That's the only time you sit. And for that, I find it very useful because that way I am able to relax my body and then start going up here and understanding what the priest is saying in his homily and really drinking it in, what he's saying, what he's preaching about the gospel reading for that Sunday. So, this whole idea of sitting in church is, to me, completely alien. I don't even know what that would be like. Well, I kind of know what that would be like. I've been to a few other churches due to the fact that it was part of school, or that, relatives or friends invited me to go to church, and I was like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll go ahead and check it out. But every single time I left unimpressed or disgusted, or I just couldn't believe what they were doing. It was just so silly and ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, the idea that you sit in church at attention, you don't sit at attention when you go to church. You stand at attention when you're worshiping God. You don't sit at attention. It's going to drive everybody crazy. Let's see. So he said that when you go to church, you reaffirm your commitment to the good you're all aiming at. Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. I think that another way, the way I kind of look at it, taking myself and orthodoxy here into account, is that it is reinvigorating myself into remembering to lead a holy life, a holy Orthodox life. That's what going to church is. Going to church is part of that, so we can all do that together. And remember that we're not alone in this. Misery loves company. Well, so does somebody who wants to lead an Orthodox faith. We love company too. And being able to talk about the Orthodox faith and all that it encompasses is A, deeply enjoyable and gratifying, and B, it really it's a beautiful thing that you can just get kind of sucked in, and next thing you know, you're talking forever. So it's terrific. There's history, there's theology, there's so much to the Orthodox Church. So, going to church is and the other part of going to church is really to partake of the Holy Sacrament of Communion, whereby you take the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And, the idea that somehow bread and wine are now the body and blood of Jesus Christ, that's called a mystery in the Orthodox Church. There are mysteries which humanity is simply not going to understand because we are only human, and we are also fallen human. We are not, we're not like the angels, say, or anything like that. We're not in paradise. You know, it's just it's called a holy mystery because we do not understand all of it. That's okay. Let's see. And he talked about contemplating a higher meaning of life and how we have lost the tradition in America, or maybe Canada. I mean, I don't know. He's been on the American news now, so it kind of blurs the lines here. But contemplating a higher meaning of life, how we've lost the tradition of communal contemplation of the meaning of life, and how, you know, at least once a week for an hour or so is better than none at all. Now, that's an interesting point, the idea that we've lost this tradition. You know, to be honest, I don't even know what that means in a way, because I have the Orthodox faith, and in the Orthodox faith, there's no loss of tradition. It's all there. It is very much there, and it goes beyond Sunday worship. There are things you do outside of your faith. Your faith becomes more or less a rhythm of life for you. This is not just a special thing you do every Sunday. This is how you live, day in, day out, Sunday or not. So, let's see, for instance, one way that the Orthodox faith is a much bigger thing is that you have the lives of the saints that you can read. So one life I would recommend, I don't know who's watching this, so I don't know if you'd be interested in it or not, is Life of Saint Nectari of Optina. I actually reviewed his this book and his life kind of in general on another video of my channel, but you know, this is, we have the lives of the saints, and the reason you have the lives of the saints is so that you can watch the gospel in action. You can see somebody, through reading the life of a saint, you can watch somebody literally living the gospel. And it is a very deep, very beautiful look at somebody who is leading the Christian life. In the Orthodox Christian life. I have to allow that qualifier. There's so many denominations now. And yes, Orthodox Christianity is the faith. I might as well just put that out there just to kind of clarify where I come from. But that's what you have a saint's life for. And it's instructive because you can learn from that saint who's already led the Orthodox Christian lifestyle. There's also the writings of the Church Fathers. This is a very heavy-handed book, Philokalia, the complete text, volume 1, compiled by Saint Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain and Saint Macarius of Corinth. And for the record, no, I'm not that Macarius. I'm Macarius, just a guy. Okay. There are saints and people in the Orthodox Church are named after saints. I was named after Saint Macarius of Egypt. Let's see. So, here's a good one. This is interesting. There is among the passions an anger of the intellect, and this anger is in accordance with nature. Without anger, a man cannot attain purity. He has to feel angry with all that is sown in him by the enemy. Now that's an interesting idea, using anger against the enemy as opposed to your fellow man, which, if you're anything like me, you just tend to be that way. We're not supposed to be that way, but here we are. So, the idea that this anger is in accordance with nature. I've never thought of anger as necessarily being in accordance with nature, you know, but it is a part of us. People can become angry, so obviously that's kind of inherent in part of being human, but we have to use it correctly, which is to feel angry, to get angry at all the evil that is sown in him by the enemy. So if I really want to overcome evil inside of me, which we all have. We can all become very evil people. If I want to overcome that, then I have to get angry at that. So it's a really interesting, this is a bit of a cheap word, but twist. It's a deeper way of looking at the human condition, I guess you could say. And so you have the Church Fathers, you have their writings, you have the lives, and you have the writings. So, I mean, there is a pantheon of stuff that you will never finish reading in the Orthodox Church, of saints' lives and writings. So, you know, this is, let's see, yeah, this whole idea that we have lost this tradition, to me, is completely alien. Now, in American churches, I can totally see that. Because in American churches, you have, in non-Orthodox churches, you have a very shallow version, stripped down version of what Orthodoxy is. And of course there are some parts of those churches that are anti-Orthodox, non-Orthodox, that the Orthodox don't believe in. It's like every shallow version, every shallow Christian faith, every non-Orthodox faith has a piece of what Orthodoxy is. And of course, and there's Mormonism and Jehovah's Witness, where I'm not even sure what I'm looking at, but generally speaking, they have a piece of Orthodoxy in some way, shape, or form. And that's in Orthodoxy where it ultimately comes from. There's also the prayer rope, which is the, how do you put it? The ancestor of the Catholic Rosary, because the Catholics, when they split from the Orthodox, roughly speaking in 1054, they took a number of ideas with them. One of them being the prayer rope, which they now call the Rosary. So, the other things that you can do in the Orthodox faith is to pray your prayer rope, say the Jesus prayer on it. And, so I mean, there's always something to do. And even in church, going back a little bit to how he has trouble sitting in church, well, first of all, standing should really help. But also, if you stand in church and you still feel like you need to do something, to be active in some way, you can pray your prayer up during church. You can follow the service in the service book. I mean, there's always something there's something you can do to take care of that. Now he says that without this tradition of communal worship, we are fragmented quite badly, and that is very, very true. Which brings me some sorrow in America when there are so many different denominations who all believe various things, and not all of them know what, and not all of them know why either. In fact, a great deal of them, I think, don't. I would call those faiths that are built on sand, just because it is so shallow. And so when you have a shallow faith, it's kind of inevitable that it's going to fall apart. And yeah, everything's going to be kind of rent asunder, which is sad, which is unfortunate. In the Orthodox Church, though, again, I don't really see that just doesn't happen. We have the Orthodox tradition. It is what it is, and that's how things are. So those are kind of my responses to Dr. Jerome B. Peterson's responses. I found his response absolutely fascinating. He's a very Dr. Jerome B. Peterson. If you're watching this video, you are a very fascinating character, and actually watching you has helped me enhance my Orthodox way of life. If I may say so, I think that if you delved into Orthodoxy, I think if you delved into Orthodoxy, I think you would find it fascinating. I think you would find it spiritually, intellectually, psychologically very fulfilling. So I would recommend to you checking it out. I feel like you and I occupy a certain amount of headspace in common. So I think that you would find it very interesting and worth your while. It would probably save you a lot of time and trouble in life, spiritually speaking, and perhaps otherwise. And so yeah, I mean, I would just check that out if I was you. Dostoevsky and Solzhenitsyn, what they knew, that's also accessible to you. So by all means, I would recommend checking it out. So thank you from a fan for enhancing my Orthodox way of life and just simply how I think. I do not think the same way that I used to. I kind of incrementally adopt certain ideas of how to promote yourself in your life into good ways of life, into good modes of being. So I really do appreciate all that. So thank you so much. And well, to anybody who's watching this video, I hope you all enjoyed a good time. I hope you got something out of it. I know I did. And you have a good day or night or whatever, wherever your time zone is. And I'll see you in the next video.